listener production.
Hey, Sacha Barbour Gatt here with The Briefing. A hack affecting 560 million customers and a lawsuit from the US Department of Justice. That's what Live Nation and Ticketmaster are dealing with right now. The DOJ is alleging Live Nation, which owns Ticketmaster, is controlling the industry by determining which artists can perform and what the cost of a ticket will be. It's also saying it's used its dominance to extinguish competition and is suing to break the entity up. So what might a lawsuit and the hack do to the global live music industry? Tessa Randello is from the LiSTNR Newsroom and she's joining us now to unpack it all. Hey, Tessa.
Hello.
You've been following Australia's ticketing industry for quite a while now, but we have seen some pretty big developments over the last few months, as I've just kind of mentioned. Let's start with the Ticketmaster hack. What do we know so far about it? It feels like it happened and then we heard nothing else.
I wish I could bring you an amazing amount of detail about this, but I really can't. All we know at the moment is that the owner of Ticketmaster, Live Nation, confirmed that there had been unauthorised activity on its database after a group of hackers called Shiny Hunters claimed that they stole the data of 560 million people. And people who might know a little bit about hackers might have heard of Shiny Hunters before. They're actually an organisation that's believed to have formed in 2020, and they've been responsible for multiple hacks in the past. So that includes stuff like Microsoft, the media company Mashable, and about a dozen others. And they are reportedly asking for $750,000 in Australian dollars and say it's stolen names, addresses, credit card numbers, phone numbers, and payment details. So all the stuff you don't want a hacker to have.
Yeah, and I remember when this broke, the headline that 500 million people could have been caught up in this hack. I was refreshing their Twitter page waiting for a comment on the day. And then, to be fair, I forgot about it because we didn't hear anything. Have we heard anything else from Ticketmaster since that day?
So Live Nation has put out a statement and all they've really said is that there was a breach that occurred on May 20 and it was a cyber criminal who, quote, offered what it alleged to be the company user data for the sale via the dark web. The company's now working to mitigate the risk to users and the companies, and they've notified other law enforcement and corporations that they need to. I did try and organise an interview with Live Nation and Ticketmaster, but they did not get back to my requests in time.
Have Aussies been caught up in it?
So we haven't got confirmation whether or not Aussies have been caught up, but we do know that the Department of Home Affairs is in talks with Ticketmaster. So they sent me a statement. So I'll just read a couple of quotes for what they had to say. The Department of Home Affairs spokesperson says the National Office of Cybersecurity is continuing to engage with Ticketmaster and understanding the incident. They also received a briefing on the 30th of May from Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation, to better understand the impacts to its Australian market and the Australians accessing its overseas markets.
So it sounds like we don't know anything.
No.
Yeah. And we're like a month on as well. Like, this seems very strange. I wonder perhaps if, you know, Ticketmaster or Live Nation used the words alleged data breach. I wonder if maybe they're not sure if any data has actually been stolen.
Well, the only word that Live Nation actually used was unauthorised activity. So they know that there was some sort of unauthorised activity, and then you have this hacker group who's come up on the dark web saying, we want money, we've got everything.
Yeah.
And that's all we know so far.
Yeah, okay. So look, while this is happening, parent company Live Nation has been sued. Who is suing them and why?
So it's actually the US Department of Justice who is suing Live Nation and the subsidiary Ticketmaster for monopolising and other unlawful conduct that thwarts competition in marketing across the Live Nation industry. In the DOJ complaint, it said, quote, Live Nation directly manages more than 400 musical artists and in total controls around 60% of concert promotions at major concert venues. It also said that they control more than 265 concert venues in North America, including more than 60 of the top 100 amphitheatres in the US. So here's some of the allegations from the United States Attorney General Merrick Garland.
We allege that to sustain this dominance, Live Nation relies on unlawful, anti-competitive conduct to exercise its monopolistic control over the live events industry in the United States and over the fans, artists, independent promoters, and venues that power the industry.
Okay, so has Live Nation responded to this lawsuit at all?
We've actually got a lot more information from Live Nation on this lawsuit than we do about the hack. It had a pretty lengthy response to the lawsuit. It was by Dan Wall, their Executive Vice President of Corporate and Regulatory Affairs. I'll take you through a couple of the things it said that I think are probably the most interesting. It says that the lawsuit against Live Nation and Ticketmaster won't reduce ticket prices or fees, which is what the DOJ reckons breaking up Ticketmaster and Live Nation will do. Mm-hmm. I'll also read you this quote from their response. It's also absurd to claim that Live Nation and Ticketmaster wield monopoly power. The defining features of a monopolist is monopoly profits derived from monopoly pricing.
That's a few monopolies.
Live Nation no way fits the profile. At the bottom, we are another casualty of this administration's decision to turn over antitrust enforcement. And they've also called it anti-business, which I think is really interesting. So I guess a bit of background to this lawsuit for people who don't fully understand how Live Nation and Ticketmaster came to be together. Back in 2010, Ticketmaster and Live Nation merged in the US to form an entertainment group that handled kind of a bit of everything. So Ticketmaster was already doing what they do with tickets. Live Nation was already doing promoting and running some of the venues. So they came together. The US Department of Justice actually scrutinized the merger and it was ultimately approved. John Quokka is a professor of economics at Northeastern University and he was actually one of the economic consultants on the original deal. He believes it should not have happened in the first place and he says the original merger is why we're at this point now.
That has proven to be the problem, one of the major problems. The Justice Department in 2010 approved the merger and tried to basically say, we'll let you merge on the condition that you don't do this conditioning or retaliate against venues or artists that don't accept the condition. And that those prohibitions proved to be essentially unenforceable. And so the Justice Department has had now 15 years of complaints.
Yeah, so I guess the question then is, there's this argument that the merger never should have happened, but it has happened and now they're working backwards in they're reverse engineering this breakup. I guess the question is, though, for punters, for people like you and I who want to go to gigs and see shows, is it actually going to have an effect on ticket prices?
So the Department of Justice is saying that by breaking them up, the ticket fees and administration fees will go down because there'll be more competition. And that basically means that eventually we'll pay lower ticket prices for some of these concerts. Professor John Quokka also said that the disaster with selling Taylor Swift tickets ended up being a bit of a catalyst for change, which is really interesting because it's something that we talk about, on a day-to-day basis, but we wouldn't think that a Department of Justice would be actually watching that. So in the US, there was actually record demand for Taylor Swift's 2023 tour. It crashed the company's website. A bunch of tickets got sold in pre-sale and people weren't even able to get in to get general sale. Taylor Swift herself even commented on those issues. In a statement, she said that she had asked Ticketmaster multiple times if they could handle the demand and they were assured that they could. Joe Birch, the president of Live Nation, which is Ticketmaster's parent company, also apologised to the US Senate a little while later, and he says that they need to do better and they will, and they blamed a bot attack for the experience.
Yeah, I remember when that was happening and people were just up in arms. In Australia, it was just high demand and there were questions about how the sale was handled, but in the US it was so much worse. And it doesn't actually surprise me that this is catching the attention of bodies like the DOJ because, there's a responsibility for corporate responsibility for companies and businesses. They can't just do whatever they want. Look, what happens from here? What will we see happen over the next few months? Are we likely to get an outcome in this lawsuit?
So the next steps will probably take a little while. I guess in the US court system, they now put together a discovery, and a discovery is essentially all of the evidence that both sides plan to bring to court. It could often bring some documents that maybe Live Nation or Ticketmaster don't want to be revealed and could kind of end up in a agreement before they even go to court, because once they go to court, those documents become public record. John Quokka doesn't expect to see anything happen for the rest of the year, but he also believes that this Justice Department is less likely in the past to accept anything short of what they're asking for. And what they're asking for is for Ticketmaster and Live Nation to be completely broken up.
Mm-hmm. This is a US lawsuit. This isn't necessarily going to have any impact here in Australia, or will it? Will we see some sort of flow-on effect?
Well, Professor John Quokka believes is that what happens in the US will spill over to the rest of the world. And he is pretty sure that it will bring down the price of ticket sales, not only in the US, but worldwide.
There will be eventually downward pressure on ticket servicing prices. The add-on fees that Ticketmaster piggybacks on top of ticket seat prices themselves, will be subject to competition. So that will be the most obvious beneficial effect for fans. That will happen only as competition emerges, so that won't happen the day after the trial, but it will in fact happen.
Yeah, so there's this idea that this not only will help lower ticket prices, but it'll also increase competition within the global live music industry. How might we see that?
So it'll be really interesting because Live Nation and Ticketmaster, if the lawsuit is successful, will have to break up, which basically means that Live Nation, who does a lot of the promoting and owns a lot of the venues, won't have that same partnership with the person who's selling the tickets anymore. So they won't be able to set their own fees, and there will be more people who will be able to come into those kind of gaps and be more competitive with these two companies once they're separated. And Professor John Quoker also believes it will undo some harm that's also being done under the current practices.
Antitrust cases are always interesting. This one is novel in some important ways. The agencies don't often go back and try to break up companies. They do, and here's my cynicism, they avert their eyes more often than not. Live music industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's not a multi-trillion-dollar industry, but it's one that affects an awful lot of people. And it has done so for a long period of time. And it's led to an awful lot of economic and business and consumer harm in the meantime. So I think that this case is a good one to bring.
Yeah, so crack out the popcorn, I guess, Tessa. We've got a long road ahead of us to watch. But I do think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this lawsuit. Thank you so much for bringing us this story.
Thank you.
That was listener journalist Tessa Randello there. And that is all we have time for this afternoon. Thank you so much for listening. A reminder, we put out full episodes of our weekend briefing on YouTube. Search LiSTNR Newsroom on the platform to access those. And we'll be back in your feeds tomorrow morning at 6 with more headlines and another deep dive. I'm Sacha Barbour Gatt. Thanks for listening.